This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed by hosts, guests, or employees are their own and do not necessarily represent ATS or its affiliates. Mention of any company, product, or service is not an endorsement. While ATS and its sister companies share corporate ties, they operate independently. ATS is not responsible for the accuracy or content statements made. For questions, visit atsinc.com.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Road, the ATS podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Eric, and got a couple of great guests, some repeat guests in this episode here. If you gentlemen want to take a little bit of time, reintroduce yourselves to the lovely audience out there, please.
I am Chris, a Senior National Sales Rep with ATS Logistics.
How long have you been with ATS?
I've been with ATS for a little over 7 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Likewise. I am Josh Rivers. I am a sales team manager with ATS Logistics. I, too, have been with the company just over 7 years. I think I hit my 7-year mark last week.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Episode today, talk a little bit about the market, kind of what we're seeing out there live. Talk a little bit about what the kind of shippers and drivers out there can kind of forecast for the remaining of the summer. Our last podcast really dug around shipping around the holidays, 4th of July. So we'll get into that a little bit. Then dig kind of into kind of ATS Logistics overall, right? What is ATS Logistics? We got a big day coming up here soon, a logistics day hosted at our corporate office, and we'll really dig into that. But I guess first, let's take some time to talk about the industry updates. Like I said, upcoming holidays. What do we got going on in the market right now that customers and shippers and drivers out there should kind of look out for? What are you guys hearing?
I mean, first thing I would want to talk about is the weather, right? Weather's been kind of nuts all through the Midwest this summer, tornadoes and heavy storms, and we've definitely seen some delays on that, more so than I think in years past.
Okay.
I mean, for my team anyways, it's definitely impacted us more, but the big thing coming up is the 4th of July holiday. I think is the next big deal.
So, I mean, going back to weather a little bit, that's something really that, people should be leery of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why do they need to pay attention to weather?
Yeah, I think
why is it affecting you?
Right. So I mean the obvious answer to that is a driver is driving around with a 53-foot trailer that is essentially a gigantic sail, right? Mm-hmm. So when the wind kicks up, those heavy storms where they have high winds, hail, tornadoes, and stuff like that, drivers are obviously gonna stop. They should stop. I mean, every time you turn on the news and a tornado's ripped through a town, there's tractor trailers that are tossed all over the place, and I don't think anybody wants their freight to be hurled 3 miles through a farmer's field. So, I mean, that causes delays, and just being cognizant of that when you're scheduling your shipments. If you've got something that's going across Kansas in the middle of June, that weather could be a factor. And just being patient, right? If a driver stops for safety, it's important to understand and empathize with that, because timely deliveries are important to not just our shippers, but their end customers as well. And I think people would rather it get there a couple days late than it never get there at all.
Exactly. I mean, you got to think about that too, right? I mean, I was at home even last night, and tornado warning was in my county, and so we kind of paid attention. Do we need to kind of be ready to activate, head downstairs or whatever it may be? And drivers are on the road, right? They're so those guys and gals are paying attention to the weather, and if they need to get off the road, like you said, for safety, the more as a shipper or a customer you can be open to or flexible certainly can help out. Taking outside the dry van market, flatbed market, delivering or loading outside in the elements, heavy equipment or whatever it may be. There can be weather holds even after that. If it is raining, storming, super windy, the thought of throwing tarps.
That's what I was going to say.
On the top of a trailer is
tarping in 30-mile-an-hour winds is highly undesirable.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the way to accommodate something like that is if a driver's got a tarp product and it's gusty outside, I mean, if you have a way to load him indoors, or if you have a team that can help him out, because, I mean, one guy trying to handle a tarp in, 25-mile-an-hour winds is going to be a hassle. It's going to prolong the time that driver's on your lot. It's going to compromise the tarping job to some degree, I would have to imagine. So just trying to help out and accommodate wherever you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else we got going on in the market right now? Produce season still kicking
Yep, still feeling the effects of produce season, not as intensely as maybe we had anticipated, which is a good thing for carriers, shippers, receivers, everybody. That means that the capacity crunch that we expected didn't really hit in full force. It's still there for sure, I would say, but it's not as heavily impacting our network as we had anticipated.
Okay.
4th of July, I think, is going to be the big one because that's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's on a Friday this year, isn't it?
Luckily it is.
Which is great for us, right?
I think it's great for a lot of people. I think a long weekend, but I think as a shipper or a customer, anytime you've got and we talked about it a lot in the last podcast about the 4th, is that when those holidays happen to be in the middle of the week, how much more chaotic it can throw capacity for especially longer miles. But being on a Friday, it's a little easier, probably, given you can get some longer miles in, and maybe drivers are going home on Thursday as opposed to going home on Tuesday and holidays Wednesday, and are they coming out again on Thursday and Friday? Who knows? Yeah,
you still have that whole week to ship your freight, and as long as it doesn't go over that weekend, you should be. We'll see a spike in rates for sure. We'll see a little bit of a capacity crunch for sure. But as long as it's delivering by that Thursday, you can minimize the damage. I'd actually be interested to get your feedback on this, Chris, as somebody who's still on the phone, still talking to customers day to day. I mean, what do you tell them?
Yeah, no, definitely it's something you want to keep your customers and shippers aware of, that you should expect to pay a little bit higher of a rate just because of that. And you always see, 3 to 5 days or before or after the holiday too, where the rates do spike up. Drivers are wanting to go home, spend time with the family over the holiday. So just so the customers are aware that you're probably going to see the rates being impacted, and there could be some delay, maybe delays in shipments, or if there's any flexibility where you can ship earlier or ship later after the holiday, could be advantageous to them.
And to be honest, I mean, the holidays throughout this year, what we've noticed the most is typically the most impact we see is on the backside of the holiday. And that reluctance to, from a driver's standpoint, that reluctance to get back on the road, right? Mm-hmm. These guys spend the majority of the year on the road. So when they get that taste of home, I mean, yeah, I would be dragging my feet to get back out there too. Yeah. I would try to sit there for Monday, Tuesday and, soak up that time. And so you'll see, we've seen with our holidays so far in 2025 is that's where the biggest impact has been, is on that backside of the holiday. So I would probably imagine it's going to be similar.
And they've even talked, we had, who was in here on the asset side? Was it Stacy? I can't recall, but she even mentioned that like the number 2 holiday to get drivers home is 4th of July.
Yeah.
Number 1's Christmas. Number 2 is 4th of July. So it is a pretty big holiday in which that takes a lot of capacity off the road, and it's not as easy as this. They ask for PTO and we have an allotment of here's how many people are going to be gone, right? Mm-hmm. It's just there's an unknown amount of drivers that will be off the road, and the ones that are on the road, typically, like you guys talked about, see rate increases before, even Josh, as you mentioned, after. Some of those statistics out there say that rate increases get up to 10 to 15% above market in those the 3 to 5 days before a holiday, and even can linger after the holiday season. So again, the sooner that you can plan, earlier in the week of July, would be June 30th, I guess. But can you be flexible enough the week before, flexible the week after, to allow just kind of the capacity flow to help out with the freight.
I also think it's a good point to point out is that correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the 4th of July is also the number 2 holiday for travel, or it might be number 1. I can't remember, but I remember reading somewhere that the 4th of July, the road travel for the 4th is comparable with Christmas. Mm-hmm. So the drivers that are on the road are going to be out there with millions of other people that are traveling for that holiday. And that's something to keep in mind too, is traffic is going to be unbelievable, especially in heavily congested areas already. So your larger population density areas are going to be a nightmare for semi drivers.
Oh yeah. I mean, you throw in the capacity, you throw in the amount of the amount of just vehicles on the road, but you throw in, it's Minnesota's road construction season, right? Like we go down, 10 miles southeast of here on 94, you run into Monticello, and there's road construction all the way down, 6, 7, 8 miles into St. Michael, and
it's all the way up to Sartell by my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Too,
So fourth, talked about that. I think what we're seeing too is an increase of tender rejections. Doing a little bit of research, it's about up, said 5 to 6%, which is bigger or more rejections than it was last year at this time. So that can definitely play effect with the market. Freight will shift from that contracted freight to that spot freight, which then increases the cost. So something that we're just kind of keeping an eye on now. It's usually a good indicator of tougher market. Or more loose, I guess, more loose market for the drivers. They're rejecting freight, and
we've seen customers as well that usually do RFQs around this time, or maybe do quarterly or twice a year, and they're canceling them because they're trying to cling to the lower rates that they got when they initially did these RFQs, and they know that the next RFQ is not going to be a further reduction. They know it's going to be an increase, so they're trying to cling to them as long as they possibly can.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, and we are definitely seeing that too. Something we actually talked about in a meeting yesterday was kind of that same thing where we are seeing a delay in new RFQs. We've seen a lot of mini bids here and there.
Yeah,
but the overall full RFQs seem to be a little bit less at this time right now.
And I think that's what we're going to continue to see is the lanes and areas that are giving them trouble. They'll send those out for a rebid or a mini bid, like you said, but the full on RFQ is not. I mean, if they have lanes that are still being serviced, there's no real need to reprice them.
Mm-hmm. I'm digging into that, after the holiday, it is kind of crazy that we're just talking about the 4th, but then after that, middle of July, end of July, we start getting into back to school. I mean, the school just ended here in Minnesota,
which is crazy.
2 weeks ago. but then we jump back into all that freight hitting the road and getting into the warehouses to get ready to hit the retail stores for back to school and everything needed there. So, it's just kind of, this is the time with, like we talked about, road construction, travel, just a lot more freight on the road, and a lot more things going on that can affect pricing, affect capacity, affect the scheduling of the freight too. So just making sure flexibility is key there.
It's funny we mentioned back to school because I remember being a kid, like summer felt like it was going to last forever.
Yeah.
Like it was a lifetime. It was never going to end. And now being older, you hit July and it's like, all right, so we got just over 90 days before we're talking about going back to school. And it's weird to look at it like it's a blink in a year.
Anything else? Kind of current outlook between kind of 4th of July here and the end of summer or into August?
I think it stays relatively the same. I mean, we're going to deal with the same issues in July that we'll deal with in August. I mean, like I said, you're somebody who's still a little bit more in the trenches than I am, but I mean, from my seat, that's what I see.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing too, right? I think rates are going to remain pretty steady for the time being. And freight's, I'm seeing an uptick in freight right now currently. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that continues out throughout the summer.
Not as much talk on tariffs. You notice that?
No.
Yeah. Which is a good thing I think for our industry.
Yeah. It seemed that things have kind of stabilized on that side. There was a lot of back and forth and up and down and ebb and flow with that as they were on, they were off, they were holding. More consistency is definitely helpful in the freight world, and the more consistent that things like that can be, the better off everybody is too. So, I guess next topic, like I talked about, hosting Logistics Day at ATS. I think this is fourth annual Logistics Day at ATS. You guys want to talk about that a little bit? What is Logistics Day?
So Logistics Day is a very almost celebration carnival-esque atmosphere that ATS puts on every year at our corporate office in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And it's just a celebration of the logistics industry and the professionals that make it happen. So we get everybody together. We have food on site. I think we have, what do we have for food this year? I think it's those special brats that we've got.
Yes.
Super, super good. And we bring in a bunch of our company power units and trailers for folks to get hands-on with. Kids can climb all over the trucks and play with the horns. I know that's always a hit.
They sure can.
And it's awesome for about 10 minutes. It's open to everybody. Everybody can go. It's not just restricted to ATS employees. So if you're driving down 94 and you take a look off to your right or your left and you're like, man, that looks fun over there, then just take Opportunity Drive exit and stop by and say hi. It's open and free and available to everybody. When is it again?
Thursday, June 26th from 5 to 7.
That's right.
5 to 7.
At the corporate
ATS corporate office. We're going to have a couple local radio stations, KCLD and Wild Country. Going to be some giveaways on site. I think WeFest tickets, some ATS swag, amongst other things, like you said, the delicious brats, chips and beverages. There's going to be an ice cream truck there this year.
There is, isn't there?
There is.
It's getting bigger every year. I swear, every time we do.
No, it's just really, it's a celebration of the logistics industry, and especially here at ATS. I mean, we're celebrating our entire company's 70th year. So a lot to celebrate from this family friendly event. Touch a truck. We've got, like I said, we got flatbed, dry vans. I think we have maybe some of our bigger heavy equipment trailers will be on site. It's bounce house, yard games, bags, you name it. It's going to be there at ATS corporate office. So, lastly, I guess, digging into it. So we're going to look to celebrate in a couple weeks, ATS Logistics, or Logistics Day, actually, the logistics industry. But let's really dig into ATS Logistics and who is ATS Logistics? Who is ATS Logistics, and kind of what does a freight broker actually do? So let's start with ATS Logistics. Who is ATS Logistics?
I mean, we are ATS Logistics.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. We are ATS.
Yeah.
Logistics.
There you go. Yeah. So who is ATS Logistics? So ATS Logistics is the brokerage arm of the Anderson Trucking Service family of companies. So we are the brokerage division of the company, essentially. And the unique portion of ATS Logistics is, unlike many other brokerages, we are asset supported, which means that our two asset divisions of Anderson Trucking Service Incorporated and Anderson Trucking Service Specialized, which is our flatbed and van divisions, they get the first rights to our freight. So a lot of brokerages, when they're booking freight, they're depending entirely on their carrier network. And if you have a fantastic carrier network, that's great and everything, but having that backing of in-house company units with dispatchers downstairs that you can just go talk to and make sure that the planning is all correct is a huge leg up that we offer. Mm-hmm. So we basically what we do is very similar to what your standard asset-backed carrier is we are responsible for the booking and on-time pickup and delivery of freight and goods. And we handle everything from, single pallet LTL shipments to 53-foot dry van trailers all the way up to, 19-axle RGNs. And everything in between is what we take care of.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a very large point. I mean, talking about ATS overall is that when you look at the whole entire enterprise, right? Like you said, we're continue to become a larger and larger logistics broker every day. I mean, I've been here for 12 and a half years, and I think when I started, it was like 12 salespeople. We're pushing 200 now, right? And I think, I forget how many, 8, 10 outside regional offices. So we continue to expand our availability capacity in the brokerage world, but along with that, like I said, we're under the umbrella of ATS. We're the largest flatbed carrier in the United States and a substantial carrier on the the dry van market. So we have all the service offerings that a shipper is looking for, not to mention our international division. So we have all the service offerings that when that one point of contact. So I think that's what's really big on the logistics side, that you can partner with one of our sales reps and they can kind of put together a plan of service and needs and to meet the expectations across the entire enterprise. And you still have that one point of contact. I think that's a huge opportunity to work with a logistics broker, especially such as ATS, not to toot our own horns, but
yeah, I think you nailed it. Is the one thing that really truly does set ATS apart is if you had product that you needed to get from Singapore to York, Pennsylvania, ATS is one of the few companies that you could go to for a single stop shop.
Yep.
That handles every single leg of that journey, from loading the container in a foreign country to getting that container to the port in California and then getting that finished product on the road to Pennsylvania. We can handle everything.
Mm-hmm. I guess what are some advantages? I guess Chris probably hears it a bunch on the phone. We don't work with brokers.
I know I did.
Asset only. But and there is some understanding of that when the kind of what we hear from those companies we do talk to. But there is definitely advantages of working with, for shippers and drivers alike, to partner with a viable logistics broker. I guess what are some of those advantages?
Well, just as for a customer alone to be able to utilize ATS's family of companies, not just our brokerage, but ATS Inc., ATS Specialized, that's huge. When you can explain to them and get them to understand we're not just any other broker, that speaks volumes to them, and it's a huge talking point, and an easier way to build trust, I guess, with those customers.
Yeah. I think a big advantage for shippers in particular is the flexibility that a brokerage offers. Particularly one of our business model is, if you're working with an asset-based company and they simply do not have the capacity to pick up a shipment for you, you've tapped them out, you've given them 15, 20 loads that week, and they just don't have another driver. Instead of letting it sit on the dock until next week, when that company does have capacity, if you have that broker in your back pocket, our capacity is borderline unlimited, I would say, as well as our flexibility. So from, if you've got a shipment that you find out at 8 o'clock that morning, it's got to go by 2 p.m. that day, a brokerage is going to be able to execute on that. And I think the big advantage for drivers is drivers have direct customers that they work with, but that freight that they take from those customers might put them in an area where they don't have these direct customers. And a brokerage can play a huge part in keeping their wheels turning and providing them that freight that they otherwise maybe didn't have access to. So we run into it a lot with customers who send freight out to California. These drivers get to California and they don't have any relationships built out there. They a lot of folks don't have a huge customer base in California, whereas we can help give them the freight that's going to keep them moving and put them back in an area where they do have access to their direct customers, and it's beneficial for everybody.
I think even going further a little bit on that driver's side is, I think that even some of the smaller operations, the 1, 2, 3 trucks, right? Like, what is their office support staff looking for back hauls or even head hauls out of when they're coming out of the house or out of the shop? In that, what ATS is able to offer is, logistics wise, 30,000 plus loads a month.
Yeah.
Along with some pretty great tools that are driver centric in Freight Match.
Yes.
So like you talked about, we have drivers that end up in California, they don't have freight. If they're signed up in good standing with ATS, and we can get them look at that Freight Match app, they can just book their freight right on the app and get going on their way. So I think it's the tools and the service that we're able to provide a smaller carrier, or any carrier really, is invaluable in making sure that, like you said, they keep their wheels turning, they keep making their payments.
Yeah. And every advantage we provide our drivers and our carriers and our brokerage network is ultimately an advantage to the customer, the shipper and the receiver. Because how many other brokerages have built their own in-house apps that drivers download on their phone and just book freight from the phone? What other company can say that they offer that? I'm sure they're out there, but we're one of the few.
Yeah.
Same thing with our customer portal that we supply for our customers. That customer portal provides our customers a one-stop shop for tracking, getting live updates on where their trucks are, when they're going to be there, ETAs and appointments, providing them a location to pay bills right there and then to keep those from stacking up, and just the ease of flowing through every single order that they've moved with us and seeing updates on it is another invaluable tool that a brokerage can provide.
Yeah, I mean, updates any time of the day, any time of the week, right? They can log in and look at, Sunday night at 6 o'clock before heading in for the night to see, hey, where are my trucks? Are they ready for tomorrow morning? Where are they at, et cetera? So, tools on both sides of the industry, or both sides of our organization, to the drivers and to the customers that, continue to help build that trust and give visibility and transparency to the industry or our partnership with them.
Yeah. And I think it touches on the next topic here, which is some of the common myths about brokerages. One of the ones that we've heard is that there's no transparency, which I think we just addressed with, the tracking and the customer portal and the visibility that we give our customers. Somebody who's still on the phones might have a little bit more of a fun take on that. I mean, what's some of the best ones you've heard recently? I've heard them all before, but I mean, that was years ago when I was still on the phones. So
you hear everything where, I don't work with brokers. The last broker I worked with burned me because we had a shipment that wasn't picked up, and they ignored my phone call, and they basically ghosted them. Right?
Which is a terrible way to build business, by the way.
Horrible.
What we say is like, hey, there will be bad news in the end. I mean, there will be bad news to share in the industry, right? But it doesn't go away hiding it. Yeah. So making sure when things do happen in the transportation industry, because again, they will happen. Yeah. How proactive is our communication to our customers, either on the customer side or even on the driver's side? Because when we look at that, I mean, even on the driver, the drivers are our customers on our operations side too. So it's just making sure, when things do go wrong, you do not hide. You have the conversation, a difficult conversation, as early and often as you can.
Absolutely. If you treat bad news like wine, it'll age like milk.
Yeah. Well, it's great that we have the support system that we have as well, right? On our back end, on our operations side too.
Absolutely.
If something does happen, we can react quickly to any issues that arise and get everything resolved to, keep your customer happy and keep the driver happy and keep everybody happy.
Yeah. I mean, bringing a solution with the problem is the objective, right? This is what went wrong. This is what we're doing to fix it. What are some other good myths that we've heard? There's a handful of them. I mean, it's been a ton since I've,
you hear from the customers that just, they hear excuse after excuse from brokers, and you get them, the people that say, I've heard every single excuse under the sun. I'm going to hear the same thing from you. And that's just what brokers do. But, I think that's a pretty big misconception about brokers.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the person, right? I mean, and that's every big brokerage, big trucking company across the nation. Is it's going to depend on the person you're talking to, right? What is their commitment to you?
Exactly.
And if the individual is willing to commit to you from a communication and a service standpoint, you'll get both. So I think a lot of people have dealt with some pretty bad brokers, maybe some new or inexperienced brokers, and they're setting themselves up for failure. The beautiful thing about ATS, like you said, with our size and the depth of our workforce, is that, even if there is a new sales rep on the floor and they make that call to a prospect, and, that prospect is going to trust them with their freight, they're not trusting their freight to a brand new, sales rep with ATS. They're trusting their freight to that new sales rep who has the backing of a conglomerate of companies with centuries of experience on the floor as well. So it's not just going to some Joe Schmo. It's getting taken care of.
Correct.
I think my favorite one was that I heard was that I won't work with brokers because whenever there's a claim, they just won't pay it. And that's not at all how it is supposed to work. If you're working with carrier or working with a broker that's got a very trusted and vetted network, those carriers that they're bringing to you will handle the claim.
Yep.
They have to, or they just simply won't. They're not allowed to haul for us. And we've dealt with claims that we've had to resolve on our own because we want to make right by the customer. And you don't make right to customers by not fulfilling a legitimate claim. So at the end of the day, if the responsibility has to come to us, then it will be on us.
Yep.
I think something that brokers can help out with is first of all, there's only, asset carrier only has so many trucks. Yeah. There's only so many drivers. So if you're partnering with them, things come about that a asset carrier might not even be aware of, right? Like maybe a driver's delivering to a facility in the morning and has to go pick up a load in the afternoon, and something happens with the forklift on site, something happens with the scheduling for delivery. I mean, we've had drivers be at delivery, and suddenly we get a picture from our drivers saying, hey, they just put the forks through over the side of my trailer. I'm not going to be able to make pickup because I got to get this fixed. That, I mean, working with those, if you work directly with asset carriers, then you're like that same day freight, just trying to rebound and find another asset carrier that might have an available truck in the area is pretty tough. I mean, if asset carriers are typically planning their trucks in advance, right? Especially larger carriers. In that where a broker with the network that they do have, that risk mitigation can certainly help out with hey, we're going to find this new truck and work through the flexibility. Here's what's going on, customer. Do we have some flexible on pickup, whatever it may be, because here's what's going happened. But I guess there's a lot of times that we just on behind the scenes are faced with that. Find a new truck, and none the wiser to our customer, and the truck shows up, and a reputable broker, what we do is we stick by what we told our customer for pricing. Yep. We're not going to come back and say, hey, this happened with our truck, we're going to find a new one, but here's it's going to cost us more. We'll take care of that, and just ease the efficiencies in making sure that the freight gets picked up for our customers too.
Yeah, I would be interested to know what the average length of time that a customer who works with ATS works with us, because the number of customers that we have on the floor that have been customers since before I've started is insane. I mean, Chris, you've got customers that you've been working with for, the whole 7 years you've been here.
Yep.
And I think that's impressive. And I think that speaks a lot to the service that we provide and the quality of the people that we hire, because you don't get to be a company of this size by being bad at your job is the main thing.
Correct. I would agree by that. Well, anything else? Any other, I guess, myths about brokerages? Any other additional advantages that maybe that some shippers out there that have been hesitant to give brokers a try? I mean, I always say, go alphabetically when you do get the chance to take a look at that. It's awesome when it hits. When people don't realize the joke, it does get kind of quiet and cringy, but.
Sort by alphabetical. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
number one.
Myths about brokerages. I mean, there's a million of them. We could have a 3-hour podcast dedicated to just addressing the myths of brokerages. But I would say, I mean, if you've had questions about ATS in general because of what you've heard about other brokers or because of experiences you've had with other brokers, my suggestion would be just to reach out and ask. Look at
atsinc.com.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the Learning Hub. I think there's a whole article out there about myths about brokerage.
Yeah. Well, and we even covered like the positives and negatives to working with a brokerage. There are shippers out there where a brokerage does not make sense. It happens.
Yep.
It absolutely happens. And we don't want
We're not a fit for everybody.
No. And I think that's the biggest thing to understand is that if your brokerage is, if you have a brokerage calling you that knows nothing about your shipping process, knows nothing about your freight, and they're sitting there telling you like, well, we want to haul all your freight, and they know nothing about you, I mean, that's red flag number one. The first thing every good, trained logistics professional should do is learn about the process, because we don't know if you're a good fit until we've had a conversation with you. Mm-hmm. So if you have these, hesitations because of past experiences with brokers, and maybe somebody from ATS has called you and you never gave them a shot, or, you've been looking into ATS and you just aren't sure, like I said, reach out, ask to speak to somebody in logistics, ask to speak to a manager in logistics, and we'd be more than happy to address those. And like I said, if they're legitimate concerns and maybe we're not a good fit, it's in our best interest to address that. Otherwise, we spend, how much time trying to work with somebody that was never a good fit to begin with. So,
and if they're not a good fit within logistics that are good, I mean, we can find a fit within ATS overall, right? Like we just had a call a couple weeks ago with Jaden on my team and an opportunity where we had a great teams meeting, and we just felt that what their needs fell in line more with the asset side, both vans and specialized or open deck. And so we worked together on getting the right individuals involved on that side of the business, and they've they've gone through the onboarding process with pricing, contracts, billing, all that stuff, and they're ready to move that freight because we're able to find that right fit within ATS. We've got other customers out there where same things that happen where we've been able to do a little bit within logistics, but because of some needs elsewhere, we've gotten the asset teams involved. So I just think overall, there's a lot that ATS can offer out there that many other freight companies don't.
Yeah. We have examples on our own team of customers. And I think that's a huge point to emphasize, is that we are incentivized to make sure that you wind up with the best fit. So we've had a customer on our team that changed their shipping method that was just not a good fit for our brokerage division anymore. So our asset vans division now handles their freight and does a spectacular job of it because they're a better fit for that model. Likewise, we've had customers that have worked with our asset divisions change their shipping style, maybe some more last second freight. And like we said, that's harder to react to for an asset-based division. But with our brokerage side, we're able to offer that. So we've had customers go from assets to brokerage. We've had customers go from brokerage to assets. It's in our best interest to make sure that you're with the right company and the right service type that's going to make sense for you. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Talking on a podcast.
Right now, yeah.
Right.
I haven't checked my phone, so.
Anything else? Anything else as we wrap up? Anything else we missed?
We've done a pretty good job covering the outline as it was so kindly placed in front of us.
Yes. Key takeaways, holidays, as we could just continue to talk about, the more flexible you can be working with your transportation company, thinking about the drivers. I think that's a huge one, especially around the holidays, is making sure that the schedules you have are accurate. If you're a broker out there, or you're making sure you're calling the shippers and receivers to ensure that the timing is right for the drivers to show up. They're on the clock, right? There's only so many hours they can drive a day, and if they show up at a receiver and they can't take them for 3 hours, they can't stop their clock.
Yeah,
they're sitting for 3 hours, so they're working for 3 hours. Like had you come into work and said sit at your desk from 7 to 10, but you're not really going to do anything, but you're just going to wait. You're still going to get paid. You still want to get paid. That's same thing for the drivers out there, right? Like, so making sure that your schedules are updated, that you're ready to receive these drivers, to making sure that they can, then make the turn. If they've got to wait, they usually have a pre-plan. We just talked about, a lot of asset carriers, a lot of the high quality carriers out there is going to have I'm delivering at 8 o'clock in the morning. I've got a load of pickup at 2 o'clock in the afternoon so I can get going on my way, because that's how they get paid. If you make them sit around till 11, 12, 1 o'clock and, they miss that reload, their reload, it can affect them for many days. And that's how they get paid. So I just think, keeping them in mind, I wouldn't want to go sit at work for 3 hours and not get paid for it. I would expect that to happen to me too. So
I've always used the comparison of, like, if you went to your office job and at noon the computers all went down, and like, we'll just go home and we're not going to pay you. Well, you'd be pretty furious because you have this job, you're trying to get paid, and it's the same thing with drivers. If a driver's missing a pickup because of a delay at the receiver, they're going to be pretty upset because that's them essentially working unpaid,
right?
And they have to find another order after that potentially.
So. Call to action. And just be sure to check out the rest of the ATS YouTube channel for content made. Couple different areas. We got the dedicated YouTube channel for drivers. You can find them at Over the Road. Shippers, you can find the ATS Learning Hub like we talked about, atsinc.com. That's Inc with a C. And drivers can find the Learning Center at drive4ats.com. If you're interested in a new career, we have a lot of job postings out there at our atsinc.com/careers. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, appreciate you guys stopping by for my my last podcast since I've transferred over to. We'll be transferring over to our asset vans division. So while leaving logistics, as we talked about, we're great partners across the entire enterprise. So along with that, new logistics voice other than me on the podcast, since I'll be assets. So Rachel, our wonderful social media specialist, made this beautiful, spent a lot of time on this torch. And Josh, I want to hand you the torch to take over the ATS Logistics portion of Beyond the Road.
Is it an HR reason we couldn't have an actual like lit torch in here?
Yes, especially for you.
For me? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I mean, come on now. Yes.
I'm the HR reason. Okay, that's fair enough.
All right. Well, again, appreciate you guys stopping by this afternoon, sharing the information. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and leave some comments. We'd love to read them. And take care. Be safe out there. Oh, you guys.